A year ago at this time, we had a Power Breakfast discussion about economic development in our region. Today, we'll talk about where we are now. For better or worse, numerous things have changed in the past year. The good news was highlighted by Vertex Rail's announcement to bring 1,300 jobs to our region. The worst news of the year, which we'll talk about in a minute, was that the North Carolina Film Incentive Program wasn't renewed. At this time last year, a draft of the Garner Report had been issued, and today we'll talk about the actions that have been taken since then. Downtown has seen many positive developments in terms of new residential and commercial projects, as well as two prominent technology companies, Cloudwise and NextGlass, will soon be moving downtown. There's even a rumor out there that this building may one day have a hotel attached to it. And finally, in the past year, we've seen a 100% increase in the availability of jobs to lead a university or college in Wilmington. If you have any questions during the discussion today, please text them in to the number that's in your program. The number is 910-264-8955. Please make sure you include your name and table number in the text, and we'll get a microphone to as many people as possible so you can ask your question directly to the panel. I want to quickly introduce our panelists today. First, to my immediate left is Jonathan Barfield, Chairman of the New Hanover County Board of Commissioners. Next to him is Johnny Griffin, Director of the Wilmington Area Film Commission. Then John Nelms, Economic Development Manager for Duke Energy. Bill Saffa, Mayor of the City of Wilmington. And Ed Wolverton, President and CEO of Wilmington Downtown, Inc. If we could please have a round of applause for our panel. So I want to start off with our biggest, most immediate issue, which is the film industry. And Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's probably correct to portray we are basically at this moment losing a major industry in our town. So I was hoping Johnny could kick it off by talking about, one, how the film incentive used to work, how the grant program works now, and how the prospects are looking to save this industry.
Sure. We had up until the end of 2014, we had a very successful several-year run. The past 3 years alone, the film industry has spent locally $500 million in this community. Last year, 2014 alone, it was $170 million that they spent here. This year, with projections that we have based on the amount of business that we currently have, business that we expect based on the current incentive, we'll be lucky if we can do $50 million this year, and it may even be less than that. Could be $40 million. So you can see the drastic impact that it has had. The previous incentive that we had was well known in the industry, was well liked, was very encouraging for productions, and we had an awful lot of business as a result of it. Even up until the end of the year, December was our busiest December that we've had in history. I think we had 6 projects here during that month. So right up until the very end, it was very strong. Beginning in January of this year, we transitioned to a new grant-based program that the legislature put into place. The grant program, excuse me, the grant program can work. The problem with it right now, though, is there's just not sufficient money in there. There's only $10 million of funding in that program to be used statewide. At this point, that $10 million has already been spoken for. So when productions call us now wanting to know about the opportunities of being able to come here, we basically have to say, that's it, we're done. We can't accept any more business. Our grant fund has been exceeded. We are doing business currently. We've got Under the Dome that's here in town. We've got another film called Bolden that's here. And so there still is business in town, but we just don't have the ability to recruit additional projects right now until we can get some more funding put into this grant program. I guess the good news in all of this is that the grant program that we currently have is only a 6-month program. So it does expire at the end of June. So it is incumbent upon the legislature to address this issue once again. So far we're having great conversations with the legislature. Our delegation here has been very helpful, very supportive, has shown strong leadership in this issue. And we're very optimistic that we'll be able to get more money put into this grant program starting July 1. I was just in Los Angeles last week attending a trade show and saw a lot of our clients and companies there. They have not given up on us. That's also the good news, in that they know that this program we have is a short-lived program. July 1 is sort of the next window of opportunity that they're seeing for North Carolina to turn this thing around and to be able to get more business here. And so they've not given up. They're very interested in what's happening in North Carolina. They're paying attention. They want updates. They want to be able to know what's going on here. And they hope to be able to come back here. They want to be here. There's other places where they're doing business right now that are not places that they desire to be. It's just the places that, for financial reasons, it's where they have to be. Wilmington, I truly can say, is a place that they really want to be. The incentive is a big piece of that, and it has to work financially for them to be here, but this is a community that they enjoy. This is a community that they like doing business in. This is a community that has trained crew people, infrastructure, Screen Gym Studios, vendors that know this industry, and so they want to be here. So we're still promoting the assets that we have here. We're still trying to maintain relationships with those clients in anticipation that July 1 will really be able to kick this thing forward and still be strong and still be able to do business. We see every sign that that will happen. And so right now we're in kind of a reorganization period, a bit of a limbo. Again, the good news is that we do have production in town, so we're not dry. It's not as if we've shut the doors and there's nothing taking place here. We're just not up to the level that we need to be to support the crew people, to support the businesses in this community that work with the film industry. In fact, I'd like to ask, just given all the business people that are in this room, if you are with a business in this town that has done business with the film industry, can you raise your hands? You know, a lot of people look at the film industry and they just think of Screen Gym Studios or companies that maybe rent lights and cameras and equipment, those sorts of things. But it's the local small businesses in the community, which is where the film companies spend the majority of their money. A lot of those companies, again, are in this room. I'll also put in a small plug on your way out at the circular desk in the lobby. There's some business cards for a new organization called smallbusinessforfilm.com. It doesn't cost anything to join. Basically, we're just looking for companies that are impacted by the film industry to sign up, to go to that website and register your business, so then we can show the legislature that this is about local small businesses. It's not just about the film industry. It's not just about Hollywood. It's about companies in this town and people in this town and people across this state that benefit from the industry that you would never expect have anything to do with the industry. So I would encourage you, if you would, to pick up one of those cards and register your business.
Can you talk for a minute about the two things? One, the strategy now to try to grow the grant program instead of trying to go back to the previous incentive program. And then number two, the difference between, I mean, looks like now the strategy is more to try to recruit TV shows as opposed to movies.
Sure. The grant program, you know, the legislature decided last year that they wanted to address tax reform and to change a lot of the tax laws, a lot of the incentive programs that are out there and how they operate. And so it seems like last year the battle for the film industry was more about do we continue with a tax credit-based program or do we go with a grant-based program? All things being equal, if we could choose, the tax credit program is the best, just in the way it operates, the way our clients have certainty and predictability. And so that is why we fought for that program and tried to keep that program in place. I think the legislature sent a very clear message. They're not interested in that. They want to go with a grant-based program, one that they feel they can manage and have that they can have a little bit more predictability with. So it's incumbent upon us at this point to recognize that, to see that that's the program they want, that's the program they support. So now we want to get behind that and to try and fund that program as well as we can. It's no longer the question of what's the vehicle going to be. We've determined what the vehicle is. Now we've just got to put the gas in the tank so we can get to where we need to go. Our clients feel the same way. Our clients have said that the tax-based program was the better one, but at the end of the day, any program that we have, it has to be what works for North Carolina, and then they will still come here and do business because, again, they value what we have here with our crew and our infrastructure. So the grant-based program can work, and like I said, so far the signals from the legislature are that last year the battle was over what the vehicle was going to be. Now that that's been decided, there is a willingness to fund this to a higher level. What that level is going to be, we have determined, our legislative leaders have determined that, you know, about $65 million a year is what will be required to maintain the level of business that we have currently had across the state. Anything less than that, and you're acknowledging that you want to reduce the industry and take a cut in the industry, Anything greater than that gives us the opportunity to grow the industry. So those are the decisions that have to be made, obviously with a lot of other funding issues that the state has. But that's where we stand on that. One thing that the state is certainly looking at is how can we maximize our return on investment with this program. And so we've looked at it very carefully and realized that television is certainly the biggest bang for your buck. We've been very successful in this town with television in years past. We've had some very successful shows that have run for many years. They not only employ people for 5, 6, 8, 9 years in the case of One Tree Hill. They provide additional benefits with tourism. You have these shows that are on the television. There is a rabid fan base of people out there that follow these shows and come to town just to see the sites where these things were filmed. Parents that bring their kids here on trips just to see where these things were filmed. The town of Southport, when they did the film Safe Haven a couple of years ago, their tourism office will tell you that the next summer their number of visitors were up by 50%. The businesses on the main street there in Southport will tell you the next summer that their business was up about 30%. So there's a residual impact as a result of this. Television can drive that. And so the legislature, I think, is going to gear this incentive as well to be a little bit more in the interest of recruiting television projects and sort of favor those projects a little bit. And that's certainly good for us. We like that. And so, again, we're trying to work with them to figure out how we can maximize the return on investment, make it the best deal for our clients, but also make it a deal that the legislature can support, because ultimately, without their support, we don't have the incentive program.
I'd like to get some perspective from the county and the city on this. I know with the Garner report, you guys basically have narrowed the list of action items there to the top 6, which one of them was the film industry and preserving or potentially growing that. So, one of you, Mayor, you want to take it?
Chairman's up there, and I'll let the chairman start.
All right. Mayor defers to the chairman.
You know, the county and the city have been working hard in front of the scenes and behind the scenes to restore the tax credit or the film credits to the film industry. Having grown up here, I saw the first movie film here, Firestarter, with Drew Barrymore. And many productions throughout the years have come here, many stars have come here, and it's really made our community the face of Hollywood. We call this Woomywood or Hollywood East. We had our State Association of County Commissioners legislative conference a few months ago. And there, through the work of Vice Chair Beth Dawson and Skip Watkins and Rob Zappel and myself, we're able to convince our fellow commissioners across the state to put the film incentives as one of our state legislative goals. And we took that to a vote. We had roughly 85 counties represented in Pinehurst. And with that initiative, now every county commissioner in our state, when they go visit their folks in Raleigh, are promoting the film industry. Every legislator in Raleigh, be it senator or representative, are getting a booklet from the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners with the film incentives or the film package in there, encouraging them to support this. And I think that speaks well of the entire association to have the backing of them. But it takes not only that organization, it takes many of us in this room here today to impress upon our local delegation, but also upon the state. You know, as you travel across our state, many counties that are rural and farming, they really don't care about the film industry. They're trying to figure out how do we bring the right agricultural incentives to our community, how do we get better schools, how do we get better roads to our communities. So it's important that we continue to tell our story, work in partnership with the city of Wilmington to indeed do that. But again, we need you all's help as well.
You know, from my perspective, just talking about the Garner report, I applaud the county for taking the lead in doing a total evaluation of our economic development, recruitment processes, and what we need to do better in the community. I think we need to do that about every 5 years, about what we do when we're looking at development plans for the community, how we're going to grow as a community. I think you have to continue to do that with economic recruitment. I think that the 21 recommendations are good recommendations. I think some of them are going to be some decisive recommendations in there, but we kept all the recommendations in place. We as a city council, with the county commissioners, prioritized what we felt were the most important ones, the ones that we could get to immediately. Film incentives obviously were one of them. Also, a small business assistance strategy was another. How do we fund economic development going forward? Taking into consideration that funding from this federal and state level is maybe going away in some respect, maybe even with beach renourishment, with road projects, with JDIG grant monies for recruitment of businesses. How do we rebuild infrastructure, especially on the 421 corridor, which we think is a very important corridor for industrial recruitment, industrial development. So these are things that we're working on, and of course, the big issue is how do you fund them? How do you go about getting the money to make those decisions? They're not going to be easy. A lot of it's going to be a collaboration between the city and the county and the state, as well as the federal government. And look, collaboration still is the key word here, and don't take it for granted, because we thought we had an incentive program with film that would go on forever, and that collaboration between the state and us went away. And we're going now with the grant program, which is going to be a lot more difficult to get, because you have to appropriate that now every single year, and you're going to have to fight for it with a lot of other issues that our state is going to be fighting for, from teachers' pay to rebuilding of roads and bridges to everything else out there. So we feel that we have a good plan. I know that we're going to have a meeting coming up at some point in time where we're going to discuss how we're going to get there. I know that our city manager, our county manager, and their staffs have been working on some proposals, and we'll have some, I'm sure, good debate between the city and the county as to how we get there. But the most important thing is that we've evaluated a process that you folks told us needed to be evaluated, and I think it needs to be evaluated about every 5 years, because you're going to have to change your business strategies about every 5 years, because we're in a very competitive environment, not only from within the state, but also with this globalization that we're dealing with around the world. It is, it's real, it's here, and if we're not competitive, we're not going to get the businesses here. We're growing as a region, we're growing as a city, we're growing as a county, but we also have to diversify our economy and to make sure that we're bringing jobs, good-paying jobs to our community, because we're also investing a tremendous amount of money in public education in this community, and when those kids go off to college, we would like to have them come back to their hometowns where we have made an investment in their education and be productive citizens here in Wilmington.
And Rob, just to piggyback off what the mayor said, to me, the county is in the best possible position it's ever been in for quite a while. You know, when you look at the title of today, where are we? We're not at our destination, but we're well on our way. And it makes me think about when I take my family on vacation to Key West or Disney World, and my kids are always asking, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And when I say no, they'll go back to sleep and wake up a little while later, and they'll see we're at another part of that destination. In 2011, the county, for the first time in about 17 years, put forth a strategic planning effort and hired a consultant out of Dallas, Texas to come in and help us work through, you know, what's important, what's the vision, what's the mission of our region. And through that, one of our 9 core values or pillars was economic development. And prior to that, the county had never really put any real dollars towards economic development. And I believe that if something is important to you, you're going to put money to that. I often tell people, I can tell where your heart is if you show me your checkbook. And so the county, for the first time, put $300,000 in our budget for economic development to provide the right incentive package for companies coming to our community. But then we moved that forward. I think the first time we expended money was to redredge the Carolina Beach Inlet. But then when you see companies like Castle Branch coming here and having resources in our budget to indeed provide the right incentive with the city and the state to get them to make this their headquarters and bring an additional 420 jobs here, to me, it speaks volumes. And we have to continue to do those kind of things, looking at our strat plan. So this past week, there were 4 of us that went to a strategic planning workshop sponsored by the School of Government, again, as we're about to revisit our strategic plan and look at how do we update that, how do we continue to propel that and make sure that we're doing the right things to bring jobs and businesses here. Again, when you hear Vertex come to our community, partnering with the community college, which is a major economic development player, and as you all know, the counties help fund the construction of Cayford Community College. And I've gone out to so many dinners with Scott Satterfield with Wilmington Business Development and the community college president and a company from across the country or across the world looking at our community. And they're shopping Wilmington all across the country. And we're trying to figure out how do we size up with these individuals. We've had folks from China, from Japan here with interpreters speaking back and forth with us, and we're trying to figure out how do we make this community stand out great. I applaud the city of Wilmington for all the great things they're doing with downtown Wilmington in terms of the waterfront, the walkability there, our beach communities, our film industry. And again, I'm going to say that it's a partnership with all of you all here in this room this morning.
So the legislature gives us lemon, and we have to try to make lemonade, right? So they're using a $170 million industry is vitally important to all of us in this room, all of our small businesses in downtown. Opportunities do arise, and so while they're not going to stack, you maybe have to look at them all together over a period of time to have some kind of an impact. We do see some positives that can come out of this. And for one, I look at the self-help building, the corner of Grace and Front Street, that had basically been a soundstage for television production for a number of years. That business went away. We heard the mayor and commissioner talk about the adaptability. So that property owner adapted, and they were able to find a new tenant to go in there, a locally owned business that was growing, a multi-million-dollar internet-based retailer, outdoor equipped. They wanted to do a flagship brick-and-mortar store in downtown, and they were able to come in and lease a good portion of that space. So it had an extra benefit of kind of activating a space, a critical space in downtown that had been somewhat unused, publicly anyway, for quite a while. And now it's getting back into more active retail use. Now again, one little store like that, I say little store, but one store like that's not going to make up $170 million. But it is showing some adaptability and finding ways to repurpose what we have and to make do with the tools we have to make things happen.
Well, let's dig in some more to the Garner report. So for those that don't know, this was an initiative started by the county to do an overall study of our economic development efforts. The county and the city received this report last spring and went through the 21 recommendations, which I think are all still on the table, but narrowed it down to the 6 priorities. I'd probably say that the biggest one, potentially dollar-wise or impact-wise, aside from film, would be the development of 421. And they're basically, in New Hanover County right now, there are not that many sites really ready for new industry, for development. So maybe we could start off with that 421 project, and then we'll get into the discussion of some of the recruitment and what takes place from there. John?
On 421, I mean, there is the land around the Invista site is a very viable industrial site for economic development. You've got robust infrastructure that is already in place. So that is a very, very viable site that can be marketed. I will say one of the negatives with developing along the 421 in New Hanover County at the moment is a special use permit ordinance. That is a negative. Many of your major industrial projects now are run from site consultants. They are in the business of narrowing, they're looking at a lot of sites, but it eventually a goal of getting down to one site for a decision. They are not in the business of keeping sites in the mix if there are issues. One of the big issues they look at is risk aversion. And when you look at the special use permit, the way it is written today, it's very broad, and it is very difficult for a company to look at that ordinance and know definitively that they will meet the standards of it. And so that is something that is a problem that probably, and some of the suggestions that have been made probably need to be addressed.
One thing, maybe one reason I wanted John to be up here is to give a real-world example of how economic development works. So I think a good case study is how Acme Fish ended up coming to Pender County. So can you take us through how that project worked, how they evaluated different sites, and ultimately how they ended up in our region?
Yes, be happy to. First, I need to kind of give a little bit of background. I get asked a lot, why is Duke Energy in economic development? One, we're only as good as the communities we serve. So the quality of life, the economic vitality of our communities is vital to the success of our company, first and foremost. So to explain how our economic development team is set up, I cover roughly a 30-county region in eastern North Carolina. I work with Wilmington Business Development, Brunswick County Economic Development, those folks throughout my region, and the state folks and the regional, to bring in industry into my service footprint, to assist them in any way possible to make that happen. Duke Energy, and we cover 6 states, we also have a business development team that is four persons that help cover that 6-state footprint. Their job is to go out and hunt for new leads. We cover various industry sectors, food and beverage being one of them, and Acme Smoked Fish is a prime example where our business development team uncovered that lead in their, with one of their consultant contacts. When we were first in contact with Acme, they were not looking south of Virginia. They're a New York-based company. They were looking to put a facility, a state-of-the-art facility on the East Coast, but when we got involved, they were not looking south of Virginia. Our folks convinced them to take a look at viable sites in North and South Carolina that we serve. The Pender Commerce Park quickly rose to the top of the list in that consideration and became a finalist with a site in Virginia. And through the good work of the state of North Carolina, Wilmington Business Development, Pender County, it was a true team effort, and that's how the project landed in Pender County.
So was that an issue with special use permit? Had Pender County had the same special use permit in place that New Hanover County does? Do you think that would have changed that project?
Definitely. I mean, I can tell you that is a reason New Hanover County was not considered. I mean, there was a site just across the county line that could have been considered, and it was not because of the special use permit.
So let's talk a little bit about where special use permit is. So last year, some revisions to special use permit came before the New Hanover County Commissioners, and I think it went down on a 2-2 vote, so there weren't any changes made. I don't know if, Mr. Chairman, if you could update us on where that is, and do you see changes coming, or what are you hearing on that?
First, let's talk about the genesis of the SUP, the special use permit. The reality is the county has an SUP process throughout the county, whether it be developing a community, bringing a Walmart to the Porter Snake area, or in our I-1 and I-2 zoning districts. So back in 2010, our county was being considered as a non-attainment county because of SO2 emissions. The EPA said you've reached this limit here. If we put this into effect, your county will have to do drastic things to reduce the amount of SO2 emissions. Number one, pushing more people to ride public transportation. New industry would not be coming to our community as a result of that. So myself and Commissioner Rick Catlin at the time went up to Washington, D.C. We had a meeting with the number 2 person with the EPA to talk about how do we mitigate this. And they had 2 monitors set up on 421, and they were pretty close to the Sutton plant and pretty close to the southern states, which were our 2 biggest emitters of SO2. So we spent another $75,000 to put up additional monitors to show the federal government that we were not anywhere near that area. And fortunately, Duke Energy Progress shuttered their coal facility and went to natural gas, which helped. We partnered with southern states, and they had shuttered their facility as well, which indeed decreased the SO2 emissions. But our concern then was, what happens if we do reach this status? Now we're looking at changing the carbon dioxide emissions, where our county would again be over the limit if the EPA enacts their rules that they're looking at doing now. So as an elected official, my job is to make sure that, number one, we protect the economic vitality of our community, that we protect the air quality and water quality of our community as well, that we can grow and prosper. Now, what I've heard over and over and over again is that in another county in our I-1 and I-2 districts, we have no sites. We have land for sale, but a site is some place that has water and sewer run to it. So our goal, again, is to partner with the K-Fair Public Utility Authority, the City of Wilmington, to bring water and sewer to 421, and then see what happens. I like the approach that the Wilmington Business Development is taking in terms of, let's get it here first and then see what happens, as opposed to saying that it's never going to happen because of the SUP process. Again, as an elected official, I've got to balance the needs of our community, but also the needs of the businesses that are coming here. And when I look at Duke Energy Progress, again, as the number 1 emitter of SO2 there, and now we see a fine being levied against them, I've got to make sure that I protect the quality of this community. Again, I live here. I grew up here. My family's from here. And I want to make sure that for years to come, that those that are coming here can enjoy this great place called Wilmington. We have been looking at updating the SUP. We had a joint meeting with some of the business leaders and some folks from the environmental community. There was one concern that I had with the revisions that were being made, and that is that it would take the county commissioners out of the loop, so to speak. And looking at our planning board, it is a politically appointed body by the Board of County Commissioners. And so depending on your political bent, your political sway, you can appoint a board that really shares a political view as opposed to what's best for our community and take our community to hell in a handbasket, so to speak. So I want to make sure that the Board of Commissioners continue to have oversight over any special use permit that's issued within our community. And the businesses that want to come here, they're going to come. Vertex Rail, for instance, although they're in the city, they're here. Again, a council branch coming to our community, GE expanding in our community, and others that are coming here. The ones that really want to be in New Albany County, they're going to be here. And again, they've got to be willing to protect our environment as well as be good stewards of what we have here in our community.
John, did you?
I'd give one clarification I can make about the special use permit. Many communities have special use permits. Predominance of those are very specific in what they address. The current SUP ordinance, any manufacturer that would locate in the county would be subject to that process. Any existing industry that would incorporate a new operation, a new process within their facility would be subject to that process. So I think that's an important piece of information to know when you're having that discussion.
Well, let's talk a little more about 421. What is the timeline for that project? Where would the funding come from for that
Well,
project?
that's the million-dollar question, where the funding's going to come from. I mean, this is kind of that argument, if you build it, they will come. I mean, this is a project that could probably take up to $30 million, and you put $30 million in the ground of water and sewer, you got to have customers to come online pretty quickly to start paying back that debt service, or it's going to be coming out of general fund tax dollars or whatever, or it's going to come through your rate increases with your water and sewer. So we need to take a strategic approach as to how we fund it and how we build it and what's the rate of return on investment and how does the city be partners with the county in doing this. I mean, from the city's perspective, as the mayor of the city, I don't think the city could be involved in it unless there was a voluntary annexation of properties that came into the city, so there could be some return on investment to the city taxpayers in making that investment, because we're all county taxpayers, whether we live in the city or not. So, you know, the discussion that we're going to have going forward is how do we fund it? And we do think it's a very important initiative for the community for business recruitment, especially industrial recruitment. But I don't want to just kind of get hung up on that part of it because, you know, industrial recruitment is important to the community because we've based a lot of industries in this area for many, many years or come into this community. We've got to look at other ways to also fund economic development. And one of the initiatives on the Garner Report, which I'm more interested in probably, is how do we fund economic development going forward for the entire county, because we've got beach communities right now that are concerned about beach renourishment issues. They drive a tremendous amount of tourism to our community, and how do we get them into this process? You know, is there a way sometimes for us, the state may come back to us and ask us to put a little bit more skin in the game in regards to film incentives or film grants? There are companies that come here from time to time. They're going to ask us for different things. Vertex did come to Wilmington, did come to the community. It's a tremendous job creator, but at the same time, the city, the county, and the state are appropriating about $1.5 million, $1.6 million in building a road, so we don't have a tremendous traffic jam out there on Carolina Beach Road. That was a collaborative effort after the fact. So when a big company comes to this community, the chances are pretty good that they're going to ask us for something. And we've got to make certain that we have some monies there to be able to recruit those big companies that are creating a lot of jobs. And remember, our business incentive program in the county and the city is based on the fact is that if a company comes to this town, it's got to generate a certain amount of jobs with a certain level of investment that has to take place before they get the first dime back. I think there's a misconception sometimes out there that a company talks about coming to town or comes to the community and we give them the money up front. That's not the case. Give you a good example is PPD that told us they would generate a certain amount of jobs and a certain amount of investment, and it took them up to 10 years before they got the first incentive dollar back, way after the fact that they had built their building and employed a certain amount of people. So, you know, that's the thing that we're going to have a discussion about with you folks, the community, as to how do we fund it? Do you do it with a 1/4 cent sales tax? Do you do it with a 1/2 cent sales tax? That's one way you can take a look at it. All those tourists that come to our community in the spring and summer months should help to offset some of those costs because they do create a lot of jobs. They create a lot of revenue for our community, but they also create a lot of havoc too. I mean, I know in the summer months it's kind of tough to get down to the beach and find a parking space. But we've got to find a way to be able to generate revenue because I believe we've got to take control of our own destiny and not continuously look to Raleigh to see what they're going to be doing because they may agree with us, they may not agree with us. And I think that Most dynamic communities today are looking at what they can do internally to recruit companies and businesses here. If the state is there, fine. If the state isn't there, that's fine. But we've got to make sure we take control of our own destiny, because you can't depend on the state to do that. Look, the power of the state right now is between that I-85 corridor between Charlotte and Raleigh. If you look at the economic development dollars that they're getting in JDIG, if you look at the money they're getting for transportation, the vast majority of it is going into the middle part of the state right now. And until we get more population down here and we get more representation in Raleigh, and I know our local delegation here is doing everything in their power to try to get what they can down here, we're going to have a tough road. So we've got to control our own destiny if we want to grow as a community in a diverse economy. I'm not saying we're going to grow with retirees. There's no doubt about it. Geographically, we got it. I mean, we've got it here. But we've got to make sure that we're growing our economy in a way that's diverse and that's going to bring good-paying jobs to our community for the long run.
You know, Mayor, I'm excited about this tri-county marketing effort that we have, partnering with Pender County as well as Brunswick County. So for the Acme Fish Company, for instance, although they're bordering Pender and New Hanover County, to ship their waste to Sampson County will be a tremendous financial burden. So they're looking at partnering with New Hanover County to ship their waste to our facility, which is right down the road from where their facility is. On one hand, you would say a county would say, well, why would we want to have more trash coming into our landfill? But it's a partnership, and we're looking at eventually mining for methane gas. So what better thing to put in the fish parts to help increase the methane gas, help Acme Fish Company reduce their cost to operate, which makes them even more financially viable, being able to provide more jobs to our community. And again, it shows a real cooperation between Pender County and New Hanover County, and we're looking at doing the same thing with Brunswick County as well.
Yeah, so talking about the mayor's point of we've got to find ways to do it ourselves, and the commissioners as well. A Garner report specifically cited Oklahoma City as being one of the leading models of communities that are doing it by themselves with bootstrap approach and doing things like a local option sales tax. And for those of you who may not know Oklahoma City that well, of course, they're a much larger metropolitan area than what we are. But over a decade ago, their business leaders came together and saw that they were not competitive in terms of recruiting people into their community, businesses and industries. So one of the big things they heard from the folks was, you know, who wants to live in Oklahoma City, right? There's not a lot there. So they did a local option 1-cent sales tax to generate, you know, somewhere around $700 million or so. And they used that to deal with public infrastructure, pieces of quality of life things. They built a new arena. That led to them recruiting an NBA team, the Oklahoma Thunder, who's now there as part of their civic infrastructure. If you know San Antonio, Texas, they copied San Antonio and put a canal system through their old historic warehouse district and rebranded it as Old Town. They built a new minor league baseball stadium. They built new parks. And after 5 years, whatever the term was, that tax went away. And so they started looking at, well, what else do we have to do? And so they did a second round of this local option sales tax that was, they called it, it was called MAPS, Metropolitan Area Planning System. So that was their acronym. So they did the second system called MAPS for Kids. And they focused on schools. Okay, how do we improve our schools? And they did the same approach to upgrade their amenities for bringing businesses in and to have support and improve their quality of life. And now they've done a third round of this MAPS program now. So over 15 years, they've done these MAPS programs to elevate and do things for themselves, not necessarily waiting for the state or the federal government to do it. There's a cost that comes with that. There's a vote at the ballot box. But people understood what they were voting for, what they were going to get, and this becomes a temporary thing. And as the mayor pointed out, visitors that come into your community are helping to pay for those benefits that everyone else enjoys.
Let's take a couple questions from the audience, starting at table 18. Chris Nelson.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Hannah this question. We talked a lot about manufacturing jobs that require massive infrastructure investment for their community. But we haven't talked a lot about attracting clean tech and service jobs. You know, people want to live near the beach. I think we can all agree that. That's probably why most of us are here. So what are we doing to leverage that? And why don't we? Smart, clean tech jobs could really benefit our community, much of what Ed said just now. They could make that investment. So.
Good. I will say.
Mayor or Chairman, you guys
Yeah.
mentioned about the
I will say this, that we have a company here in town called Live Oak Bank, and they have an offshoot to that, which is called Encino, which makes bank software. I don't know if you've been out there to their facilities, right there behind the Verizon there off of Independence Boulevard. The city and the county both came together. These are tech jobs. They're recruiting a lot of people from within the community, but they're also recruiting people from outside the community coming as far away from all over the country. And we saw an opportunity there to have a business that's already in town, that's already established, expand their operations. And they'll probably be one of the bigger employers in this community. And there was an incentive process that we went through, and the city and the county teamed up, collaborated, and made that investment. And they're investing in a beautiful facility there, as well as recruiting a lot of people to the community. There again, we did the same thing with Castle Branch. The county also did it at the facility there at Castle Hayne with GE. I think there's a tremendous opportunity that's right here in the community of companies and businesses that are already here, and we ought to look here first before we look outside, because there are companies here that are growing that we may not even be talking about. I know Net Class is one of them. There's other small companies that are out there that come to us from time to time, but you're right, we ought to take a look at that, because, you know, we've been talking a lot about the infrastructure on 421 and industrial recruitment and what have you, and they do provide a large job creation when it happens, but these small tech companies are something we have to continue to look at. But that also ties into the quality of life, because a lot of these young people that are part of that tech industry like baseball stadiums, they like cross-city trails, they like theater, they like the arts, they like museums, they like to have something to do in their community. And we have a great beach. Don't get me wrong, the beaches are great. But remember, they only run 6 months out of the year, unless you like to swim in cold water. So you've got to have also other things to do in your community to recruit and to attract these types of people. Look, the film industry was a tremendous generator of those, what I would call those knowledge-based workers. There's about 1,000 of them in this community, or were 1,000 of them in this community, and we want to retain those folks, because a lot of those folks started small little businesses. They came to Wilmington, they worked in the film industry, but maybe there was a wife or a husband that wanted to start another little business, and they did. And so a lot of offshoots, a lot of businesses were created by a lot of these people that came to this community, maybe for the film industry, or from Encino, or from GE, or what have you, or from Corning, that have started other businesses that are paying dividends for our community. So I'm a firm believer in that. But there is a cost associated with that also. Direct flights, that's a thing that we hear a lot. Trailing spouse syndromes, where a husband may be able to find a job here in Wilmington, but the wife can't, or the wife can find it, but the husband can't. So we've got some challenges here in a community of this size. No different than what people in Asheville tell me, or other communities about the same size as Wilmington. Your bigger areas like Charlotte and Raleigh don't seem to have that problem, because there's a lot of jobs there, there's direct flights, there's a lot of things to do there. But we have our challenges, and we have to continue to evaluate what those challenges are and make sure that we make the investments to continue to attract people like that to our community and jobs like that here.
There's a young man here named Randall Johnson. Randall is working a lot in the biotech arena. And over the last couple of months, I've gone out to dinner with Randall twice, where groups are coming to our community looking at setting up office here. One was a company called BioSkin, where the main partner lives in Germany, and they're looking at having an office here in the Wilmington area and partnering with a firm that's already here to do skin research for skin disease. The last time we were together, there was a group looking at having a marine biotechnology conference here in Wilmington in October. And the folks at the table, they're looking at bringing not just folks that work within that industry, but 300 CEOs from across the world to come to our community for a major marine biotech conference. I'm sitting at the table talking to one gentleman who is doing aqua farming, and he's growing bass. And on one instance, there's someone that's growing another type of fish, and they're using every piece of that fish in production, so that there's zero waste with that product, whether it be the bone from the fish being used for one thing, the skin from that fish being used for shoes. And it's neat when you can bring individuals like that to our community. And there's so many that are coming to New Orleans County, coming to Wilmington for various reasons to start a small business. And I've been a small business owner since 1992, and I've seen so many come here because of the quality of life, because of the livability and the walkability, to come to our community and make this place their home. And again, we're going to continue to partner with people like a Live Oak Bank, with a Castle Branch and others to bring those clean jobs to our community.
We do have to recognize, as I think the panel's talking about, is we got to grow some of our own too. I mean, when we're talking to the tech community, downtown that's our sweet spot. And if you look at downtowns across the country, that is on the cutting edge of what's coming into these urban centers. If you're watching what's happening in Research Triangle Park, some of their long-term visioning plans for those who go out in that area, they're trying to make themselves more like a downtown. They're trying to move away from a research park. We don't want to have it all these little clusters that you have to drive your car to. They're trying to adapt to become almost a little bit more like a downtown. So we've got a real opportunity to expand and to attract these tech workers, but we also realize we're growing our own places. You know, we heard the mayor mention NextGlass being one of those. CloudWise is another technology-based company here regionally that are expanding, coming into downtown as well. These younger workers, they want to be in this dynamic urban environment, and that's why our efforts really dovetail so nicely together, because we do have to have a range of different things to appeal to a diverse audience, whether they're on the industrial side or the technology side, and have product that appeal to all of those.
So how do we do that? I'm getting a lot of text questions about that. How do we incentivize technology companies and other companies to come downtown? Or do we not? Is it just lifestyle things? Is it?
Go ahead, Nick.
Well, there's, the mayor referenced the existing incentive policies that the city has, and there are guidelines that are required for a certain amount of investment, a certain amount of jobs. If we realize that we do need to have something to help grow our own, then maybe we need to look at making some adjustments to scale those down. For instance, I think the policy, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say $75 million is a minimum, or maybe it's $50 million minimum investment in facility. Well, downtown, we're not going to have too many projects like that. So maybe we need to figure out something that's going to scale a little bit better to a smaller lot size, infill development, that kind of thing. So we're constantly looking at those kinds of things, but it's not always incentives as well. These folks can be attracted by quality of life, investments like we're doing as a community in things like the Riverwalk expansion. I mean, that appeals to these young tech workers. They want to get out. The expansion of our craft brewery industry, that again is appealing to these folks. Having a vibrant nightlife, they may not work the 8 to 5 schedule that a lot of us in this room do. They might be a noon to 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So they want to walk out their door and be able to have 20 places to choose from to eat or grab a beverage somewhere. So all of those fit together in providing an environment that's supportive and meets what their lifestyle needs are.
I mean, I'll give a good example of something that, and it's not tech related, but I think it's pretty cool. I mean, Wilmington's become almost like a little Milwaukee. I mean, we're starting to make a lot of beer here. And when we saw this on the horizon, our planning department took the initiative, realized that we had a problem within our codes, and came to the city council, went through a pretty good public discussion with the community, and made some recommendations to the city council. City council adopted those recommendations, and lo and behold, we've got breweries coming out of the year. More importantly, now we've got another group of folks that are out there that are getting into distilleries, where I guess we'll be making our own bourbon down here, maybe scotch. It's not a bad thing. You guys seem to do a lot of drinking in this community because I think we're the third most profitable ABC commission in the state. But that's a good thing. You got a lot of young entrepreneurs that are opening up businesses here in this community because of that. And that's great. And there's a vibe for that. People, believe it or not, come from around the state, as they do in Asheville, to go from brewery to brewery to brewery, taste everybody's different beer. So that's an example of identifying a business, identifying some entrepreneurs that are coming into your area, and then making the changes from the policy side to make them viable and make their businesses, allowed to grow and prosper in the community. That's a prime example of that.
Yeah, and UNCW Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship has been a piece of this as well. They're helping to do the training for entrepreneurs, helping them to find investment capital, especially on the tech side. So there's a role that, again, is being filled as another organization that's out there.
And I also want to say one other thing, something that we haven't touched on, and I think is also very important for this community especially, is the arts. I don't think people I think underestimate the power of that industry, or I can call it an industry, but of that in our community, with Thalian Hall, with the Performing Arts Center that the community college is building here, with what's happening in the Brooklyn Fine Arts District, the facilities that we have there at the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. We bring a lot of people to this community with the arts and with artists. That's what's really channeled a lot of energy to Asheville. And the same thing is happening to Wilmington, has been happening to Wilmington for many years. And we should continue to look for ways to improve upon what we've been able to do with the arts in this community. People love that stuff. There's funky art, there's cool art, there's theater, there's music, and you got a music industry that's really kind of starting to really take hold here in Wilmington, and that's a good thing too. And now with this big park that we're going to have here on the river, the 6 acres, I mean, we could bring the Red Hot Chili Peppers here one day, which would be a real cool thing, you know?
Yeah, and not just the tribute band that we have.
Not the tribute band. I'm talking about the real deal.
But also, looking at our community college, there are so many companies that come here that are looking for a trained and a skilled workforce. And every company that I've seen come here, whether it be a Castle Branch, Verizon, a PPD, a GE, and Vertex, they're trying to make sure that there's a skilled workforce here in this community. And they all partner with our community college to help train and equip those workers coming here. When talking to Mr. Cruto with Vertex, I mean, he is really relying heavily on Cape Fear Community College to help bring people in, but also get them trained to work on the machinery and things that will be at Vertex Rail Technologies. When it comes to Castle Branch, when it comes to GE, again, partnering with our community college. Building this new Vet Tech Center is going to put us on the map for folks that want to get into becoming veterinarians. Our local hospital, the #1 employer in our community, Cape Fear Community College has one of the best nursing programs, bar none, throughout our state, and they're preparing nurses right here that can go and work in our hospital so they don't have to worry about trying to recruit across the country. They have homegrown stock right here in Wilmington, partnering with UNCW as well. So again, looking at making sure we have a trained workforce, again, will help those companies want to come to our community as well.
Let's take the next question, Ann, at table 26.
I am Anne Morel-Petcher, and I'm really proud to be with Cloudwise. And one of the reasons I chose to move to Cloudwise is because everything we do there is targeted at helping businesses here grow. So my question to you is, what is it that you guys see that businesses themselves here can do to help take some of the load off for economic development, to help perhaps bring a code school to town so we can get more education for the kinds of jobs we want to have? What can we do to help you grow, especially the knowledge workforce here?
I want to answer that very easily. Encourage our media partners to not focus on what we eat for dinner when we go out of town. But to focus on what we bring back to the table when we return. We just went to D.C. a few weeks ago. We had a chance to meet with probably 9 of our congressmen from across our state, both senators. I serve on the Transportation Steering Committee, so I'm there with leaders from across our country talking about transportation issues. We had Vice President Biden come speak to our group as well. The cities, I think, had the president speak to their organization while they were there in D.C. But there's so many things that we go to get knowledge to bring back to our community to make it better. And when your media is only focused about what you're eating as opposed to what you're bringing back, it sends a negative light. Now, you talk about the SUP. I guarantee that all these negative stories that the media is running on our community is hurting us far more than any SUP could ever run. And I would like for them to become partners with us to help us tell our story about the great things that are happening here in Northern County, the jobs that are coming here, how your county commission and your city council are working together, how we're going to other communities and recruiting jobs to our community as opposed to what I ate for dinner last night.
And help market the message too. I mean, we heard the talk about film, and a lot of us have signed on with the group that Johnny mentioned earlier, the Small Business for Film. We got to remember historic preservation is also in the mix as well for us. And That's a program that's gone away on the state level. Fortunately, the historic preservation tax credits are still available right now on the federal level. Another bill right now is been introduced in the state legislature about reinstituting the historic preservation tax credits on a state level, but getting the word out to the business community and get them engaged is just so crucial. And it's not just, emails are great, but it's a phone call that may often be better, or a personal visit that's even best to some of our state legislators. And I mean, look, a lot of them get it, but a lot of them don't, especially in other parts of the area. There's a big divide right now in our legislature, as you heard one of the other panels talk about. There's this rural and urban divide that's truly going on over the last couple of years. I mean, we had a state legislature that's taking away the water system of the city of Raleigh, city of Asheville, excuse me, where they didn't think that they were serving the mountain communities well enough, so they're trying to take the city system away from Asheville and tell them who they serve. The legislature's also getting involved with the Charlotte airport, trying to take away the airport from Charlotte. So these just better serve the rural interest around those bigger communities. So there's a definite tension that's at play, and we've got to engage as a business community to make sure that our legislators in our urban area at least are certainly aware and are helping us to get our needs met and across. And we also can work on a bigger state level as well.
One thing I think our community, and we've heard it in some of the questions today and some of the discussion today, we've been having a discussion now for many years about what kinds of jobs do we want, what kinds of companies do we want here, whether it's bigger industry, whether it's clean jobs, things like that. I think it's been interesting as you all have been working on the Garner report. It seems to really be a split of those things. I mean, there's the 421 projects. There's potentially having a larger pool of economic development dollars. There's incentives for small business. But what does a healthy community look like in terms of industrial jobs, manufacturing jobs, technology jobs?
Well, on the manufacturing side, and this is, I think, something that it was opening for me. I went out to Corning, which has the largest fiber optic plant in the world here on College Road. I mean, we make more fiber optic than anywhere in the world, right here in Wilmington. And when you walk into that facility and you look at that company, knowing that at one time they had almost 1,700 workers there, and today they're down to about 700, and they're profitable, and they're making money, and they're doing well. And then you start to realize how they're doing it. It's high-tech manufacturing. I went to a part of the plant that at one time, 3 different shifts had 200 employees in that room. Today, that same room has 12 employees. The vast majority of that stuff is being done with robotics. And you're seeing these trains and things that are kind of moving around, and these robots that are moving product around the place. That's the future of manufacturing in this country if they're going to be competitive, taking into consideration that the average employee at Corning makes $60,000, and when you ask the plant manager that they've got facilities in India and facilities in China, and the facility in India, who's got the equivalent of an engineering degree from NC State, is being paid $4,000 a year, that'll tell you that if American manufacturing is going to be competitive in the 21st century, they're going to have to go to this high-tech manufacturing, which has a lot to do with robotics. So you'll see a lot of that. But more importantly is, I think the entrepreneurship is where this country's going, the small business owner. That's where the jobs are going to be created. And this is a community that people predominantly choose because they want to be here for whatever known reason. And they come here as entrepreneurs, and they want to come over here and start up a small business. And we have to be more business friendly. We have to hear from you folks to tell us what we need to do on the public policy side to make things easier for you folks to open up businesses. We have to, I don't know. I mean, each one of you have different businesses out there, some in high tech, some in low tech, some in service paying jobs. But I know from time to time when there's a problem and I have a code enforcement officer, or you run into an ordinance that the city or the county's put in place, I'll get a telephone call and say, this is crazy. And we think it's crazy, but we have to evaluate it and talk about it and then make the change if necessary. But we need to hear from you folks to tell us what we need to do from time to time to make it more effective for you guys to open up business and for your business to be successful here. Sometimes we might agree, sometimes we might not agree, but I guarantee you there are all things out there that we can change, and we have to change, because in the 21st century, if you're not changing and looking at your public policies and looking at the way other people are doing things from around the world, you're going to be left behind. I mean, we got a great area here, don't get me wrong. I mean, we got one of the sweet spots in the country, but we just can't sit on our laurels and just say we're going to come down to the beach and enjoy life down here. We've got to make sure that we have a productive, diverse economy here, and that takes all of us, not just the public policymakers that are sitting up here today.
Next question, John Hennett, table 4.
Big J.
Earlier, Mr. Chairman, and others, you mentioned the role of the community college and university. How has the turnover of leadership of these two institutions, how is that going to affect our ability in economic development? I mean, it seems like we've had fairly dramatic, if not disruptive, leadership changes, and I'm concerned about it, and I feel like it can't help us the way it's going on. Is there any way you can speak to how this is affecting us, or how can it affect us, or? I mean, obviously we want to do better, but these last two guys were here so short.
You know, in my State of the County address, when we talked about the Garner report, I had a picture of both former Chancellor at UNCW, Gary Miller, as well as the former president of Cape Fear Community College, in a picture on one of the slides there, showing their partnership with us. And I can't help to think that it's definitely been a disruption in a negative way in our community to have two of your top educators or leading your top educational institutions abruptly leave for one reason or another. You know, most folks think it's all about politics. I thank Amanda Lee for stepping in, Dr. Amanda Lee for stepping in at Cape Fear Community College as the interim president. I know she would desire to have that role and move forward with that. I think that she's more than capable to lead that organization. It is great now to see that board of trustees wrapping around her and just trying to move forward and, you know, going into the future. UNCW, I know that the mayor can speak to this. They're working hard to bring another chancellor into UNCW, but it's so important to have the right people at the helm to bring stability back to our community. Number one, from the local elected position, from county commission to city council, to our beach communities, but as well as our major educational systems here as well. So I'm hoping, Mayor, you can pick up on this in terms of what UNCW is doing.
Well, I will tell you that the UNCW job is a very popular job, because based on the amount of inquiries and people that have submitted applications to become the next chancellor. Obviously, there's a 19-person board there that was on the search committee. We've narrowed it down to 5 individuals that we think are pretty dynamic. Hopefully, we'll be making a decision, at least from our perspective, to send 3 names to the Board of Governors in Chapel Hill, and from there, they will make the final determination as to who the next chancellor of the University of North Carolina Wilmington is going to be. But I can tell you that the people that have submitted their names are dynamic folks, very accomplished in their fields, some traditional candidates, some non-traditional candidates. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Board of Governors decides. And I think that we've had a pretty laborious process in evaluating these folks, and I think we've got some good candidates who can lead the university. Hey, and we've got a university that's a tremendous economic generator. It will continue to grow. I mean, my own personal opinion is I think there are 14,600 students now. I mean, you're looking at a university that'll probably be going close to 20,000 probably within the next 10 years. At some point in time, maybe 15 years. And there's Max Allen's over there is probably looking at me saying, "You crazy." But, I mean, this is one of the most popular universities out of the 16-campus system. I think we rank number 3rd in SAT scores, and we should be proud of that. And yet the funding that we get from the state is nowhere near what Chapel Hill or State get. But we are a university that is growing and prosperous and will continue to grow. And the next chancellor, whoever that may be, is going to find themselves in a very sweet spot.
I'll just add to that never before had a chancellor and president of a community college worked so well together between Dr. Miller and Dr. Spring, partnering with each other, moving the community forward. From the county standpoint, we've had the best relationship with the UNCW ever. when Gary Miller came in to lead that organization. He started, going out to the community and bridging that divide and making UNCW a part of the community as opposed to just a university within the community. And so hopefully the new chancellor at UNCW, the new president at Cape Community College will have that, the spirit of cooperation like the city of Wilmington and New York County does to make things better.
I have one more question for the panel before we let them go. Whenever we have discussions like this, we cover a lot of ground. I want to make sure we walk away with one point that each of them would like to make. If there's one action item you would like to see the business community work on or the business community be aware of coming out of this discussion, what would that be? So if you want to start with Mr. Chairman.
Consider your county government your partner. We have over 30 boards and commissions that you can apply to serve on. We definitely need your expertise to help us propel our county forward. Communicate the positive messages about this county. There are so many great things that are going on within our community. I would encourage you to attend your county commission meetings. We make decisions that affect everyone in this room on a monthly basis, and right down to our last meeting that we had a cell phone tower issue come before us that unfortunately did not get approved, but we affect your lives every day, and it's so important that you all partner with your elected officials and recognize that there are a lot of great things that are going on right here in our community. This place is the cream of the crop in terms of North Carolina. We are that economic hub for southeastern North Carolina. All these counties around us, 7 or 8 counties around us, look to us as a leader in this region, and leaders we indeed must be. I thank you all for being here on this morning and just coming to hear about where we are, but we need your help to indeed help us get there as well.
So I'm going to take a stab in the dark, Johnny, and say your one thing may have to do with the film industry.
I would say, our local legislative delegation has always been great in supporting the industry. They get it. But as they tell us, there's 99 other counties in North Carolina, and we've got to make sure that they see the value to that as well. So be in touch with our local legislators. Just a quick thank you. They work hard for us to try and make this happen. A lot of times they're swimming upstream, and they call us and they're, telling us the challenges that they're facing and letting us know the difficulties that are there, but yet they're still pushing forward. And they say, you know what, this is a incentive that is about the local community. As Ted Davis told me once, he said, this isn't an incentive about giving money to Hollywood. This is an incentive about supporting local people that I know in that community that have jobs and local businesses in that community. So let them know that you appreciate that. Just send them a quick note, say thank you. The more support they get, the more willing they are to keep hammering away at it. So let them know.
John?
Message I'd like to leave you with is to echo the chairman's remarks. This is a sweet spot. This is a special place. One of the strengths of this area historically has been a very diverse economy. And Duke Energy, we're committed to be your partner to see that continues to be the case.
Well, from my perspective, growth is in the horizon. I think the anticipated growth rate for the city within the next 20 years is about 57,000 additional people just within the incorporated city limits. The 3-county area is going to probably go from 350,000 to 650,000, so growth is in our forecast. I think that we have to be cognizant of the fact that we are in a competitive environment with the rest of the state. We are east of 95. We are the beast in the east, and we're going to continue to grow, but we're going to also need you, the business community, to reach out to our local delegation, to our governor, to different people in the legislature, that when it comes time for appropriations for funding for bridges, for roads, for development incentives, for film credits or grants, for things like that, we're really going to need for you folks to step up and speak. Hearing it from me and the chairman, they can pay us, say, hey, whatever, it's the mayor and the chairman. But when it comes from the citizens and when it comes from the business owners of the community, they pay a lot more attention to you folks, unfortunately, than they do us. Which is a good thing, by the way. But we really need for you folks to let them know that. And there will be from time to time, we're going to need your help. But we've got growth on the horizon. And the infrastructure needs in this community are going to continue to grow. They're not going to go away. And we're going to really need you folks to step up and tell us that, and tell our elected delegation in Raleigh that there is There is a viable, strong community in southeastern North Carolina that needs your help, or else we're going to succeed and go to South Carolina. No joking, I'm just joking there. But we really need your help on that. And we also need your help in respect to telling us from time to time when we need to change our policies or look at our policies, especially when it pertains to business, that we can change or alter and make better for you folks. Because without business, without jobs, we can't pay our bills, we can't fix roads, we can't fund our police departments and fire departments. You're a very important aspect of this community, and we need your voice, and we need it a lot, because sometimes I see debates happening in this community, and I hear one side of the debate, but I don't hear the other side of the debate. And then I hear a lot of you come up to me from time to time and say, this is the way I believe this should happen. And I said, why don't you speak like that in public and let people know how you feel? Because it's a viable discussion, and we should have it, and we shouldn't just hear from one side. So thank you. Thank you for being here this morning.
So Wilmington's the beast of the east, and downtown is the heart of the beast, right? So we have 880 businesses, 10,900 employees in downtown, a tax base of $600 million. That makes downtown the largest business center in our entire region. We're bigger than Mayfair, bigger than Independence Mall. Any kind of business sector, any kind of business park you want to put in there, downtown's bigger than all of it. We've got to continue to invest in that. We've got to continue to move forward. We heard about adaptability. We heard about attracting new folks coming into our community. All of those things are part of the downtown piece and our downtown infrastructure. We've got a project like the Water Street parking deck, trying to get a public-private partnership formed. That kind of investment is going to be crucial for us to continue to move forward and to nurture and sustain the heart of our downtown, of our community as well. And so all of that's really important for us, and so we've got to be ready to step up and make these kinds of decisions, and also expand our view in terms of what economic development is. Sometimes downtown folks differ from some of the other traditional economic developers. We do look at a small retail shop that comes into downtown as an economic development opportunity. We do see a surface parking lot that gets converted over to an apartment or a hotel as economic development. We see the benefits of the arts and the hospitality industry. So expand your horizons about what you might think about what downtown is, because downtown's meeting all those needs and many more.
We could please have a round of applause for our panel. We always like to give our panelists a reading assignment. So this time we got them a book called The Power of Habit, which is a very interesting book about how changing one habit for yourself, your business, your community can make a big difference. So hopefully we can learn from that. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you.